Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the Not Lunch Hour show with
What's going
Jose
on,
and
Neil?
myself. It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, Ariel here says he missed us guys, thought we got divorced or something. It's just been hectic, right? I think we both had a few vacations here and there, and just a little bit of crying here and there from the market, it seems.
Yeah, but I mean, I checked the Nasdaq today, and if you look at the 1 month chart, it's basically flat. So, I mean, quite a lot of drama, only to come back where we started. So, not bad, I'd say.
I agree, Neil. And I mean, it seems it's crazy. Earnings season is back on. We had almost a full week of real earnings, what I would call real earnings. Um, and yeah, another fun week today, this week.
Yeah, I mean, a pretty big week, I'd say. Especially, I mean, AI wise, stock market wise, we have Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Amazon. So, pretty big companies reporting earnings. Me for the fintech space, I have tomorrow Sofi and PayPal before the market opens. So, pretty, pretty important. Um, yeah, there was a big power outage today in a couple of countries in Europe, but luckily not in mine. Not in mine. I guess they'll have to contact Tesla Energy to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Um, any specific things you saw last week? Because last week we've had Apple, Alphabet, Intel, Vertiv, couple of extra companies reporting. Any interesting things you wanted to call out?
I think the two biggest for me, Neil, were Vertiv and Google. I mean, I talked about this already a bit in my channel, but like Vertiv pretty much mentions the demand for AI infrastructure is still pretty high, and they continue to see that in their backlog. And then we kind of heard similar stories from Google, Alphabet, and Google Cloud that they're still in a demand, that they have more demand for AI infrastructure than they do supply. So obviously Nvidia being my number one company, I tend to focus a lot on kind of that. um I My vacation started right when Intel reported, so I didn't listen at all, Neil, of anything Intel said during their earnings call. Last thing I saw was that there were reports, Neil, that they were planning on reducing 20% of workforce. I didn't even verify if that was even talked about during the earnings call. And if any updates to, I know something that Li Butan wants to do is kind of move more into AI infrastructure and kind of AI chips and kind of build a full stack system. If there was even any discussions to that.
Yeah, so the 20% that we've heard from certain reports was not specifically said during the earnings call, but we did get the message that cuts are coming. So whether that's going to be 20% or not remains to be seen, but there definitely is going to be some layoffs. Now, there is here a question from Matthew. Are you still going to backhold Intel? I am still going to backhold Intel because I mean, if I already have the bag, why not keep it for a little longer? Plus, I mean, Libutan just came in 3 weeks or so ago, so for me, there's really no reason to sell right now. I did say in my past video that the my I'd say the time for it to maybe show some signs of turnarounds was probably not correct. But then again, we now have another new CEO, so could not have predicted that. But they are they're definitely going to focus more on inference because let's face it, they missed the boat on training. So why now focus all the energy on training when inference is just around the corner? So I guess it's really up to them. It's really up to them. He did also say something about TSMC during an interview afterwards, so that he has a good relationship with TSMC, with the previous CEO, the current CEO. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens with that. I mean, we've spoken about that in the past. His tenure at Cadence, right, has been pretty impressive. He's made quite a lot of contacts and friends in the past 15 years or so. I guess that's going to be quite helpful for Intel. But yeah, the turnaround story will take more time than previously expected. 18A still everything's still on track. That's the thing. Everything's still on track. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the client side of things, not great, right? Seasonally very, very weak. Even for their guidance, weaker than expected. It was a double beat. This quarter was a double beat, so at least there is that. But guidance was quite weak.
Yeah. I, I don't think there was anything else that was really hopeful. I'm happy. Last week was kind of quiet. After Thursday and Friday, I am pretty excited though, Neil, about this week. I think this week, like you mentioned, if you're a fintech investor, I think you mentioned tomorrow is going to be crazy. Already starting today, you have a lot of semiconductor companies reporting. I think you have companies like Cadence, like NXP. I don't know if you might be pulling it up right now, Neil, as I'm
Mhm.
speaking. But I think NXP, Cadence, some other players report today. Teradyne, yeah, Teradyne's another kind of semiconductor player with some robotics portion in their segment. So I would love to hear stuff about that, especially. Remind me, Neil, I'll talk about it in a bit, but something that Tesla or Elon talked about in the earnings call that I found pretty interesting. For Tuesday, you have Corvo, semiconductor investor. I think for me, Wednesday is probably going to be my favorite day. You have Microsoft, you have Meta, and you have Qualcomm, which is somewhat of a popular semiconductor space. Thursday, love to hear Amazon, what they have to say. Apple, just this one just keeps. I don't know. I don't know how it's still part of Max 7, but whatever. So interesting, definitely interesting and fun week for semiconductors, like you mentioned, for fintech investors, and obviously just overall big tech players this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. I did watch your last Nvidia video. You have some beef with the All In podcast, it seems, huh?
Oh my god, not the whole podcast. It's just I don't know, man. I think if you're gonna down talk a company like Nvidia and talk about their 47% revenue, you can easily for 5 minutes read a 10K report, and it's not like you need to be some super genius. It just gets me so mad when you talk about some company like it's a definite like it's an absolute truth, and it's I don't know, it's wild.
Yeah, no, that's
I,
I mean that's the problem with I mean I like the podcast as a whole. I just don't like Jason, but okay. But yeah, sometimes like when they it's not just them, but a lot of podcasters talk with certainties, a bit like LLMs, right? They give you an answer as if it's 100% correct. And I'm like, a quick Google search would have told you that you're not correct at the moment. So yeah. But for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, go watch Jose's Nvidia video.
Yeah, and like I said in the podcast and in my episodes, like I don't really watch the podcast, so I don't know what they talk about at all. But I just said if I was looking for some place to see about tech investing or just the semiconductor market, I definitely would not watch that at all. But they might have their strength for something else. But like I said, I've never seen it. But that anything when you talk about Nvidia as an absolute, it's just wild.
Yeah, I agree. They should either join the stream here or watch your videos.
For sure.
Um, yeah, before touching on a couple of other companies that report this week, by the way, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Google Alphabet, the price of the stock is flat right now from the earnings basically. It's pretty crazy, to be honest, because I mean, I don't know if you had time to look at the report or listen to the commentary. Probably yes. um, why do you think the stock doesn't move?
I don't know. This is probably to me one of my favorite Mac Sevens at the moment. It's definitely in the top three, um, and I don't know why people. I mean, Google Cloud's doing amazing. I think Google Cloud infrastructure is going to grow at faster pace. Um, they're amazing at AI. They're doing great with YouTube. They have plenty of abilities to collect data. I wonder if the market is just truly scared about some of these legal stuff. But I feel like we hear about that almost at least once a year. We hear something like this, and even if a split up does happen, it's not the end of the world for any company. It's I think it's more of like a headline fear opposed to a real destruction of stock price or anything in the long term of things. So I'm liking it. One of my top Max Seven. Not individually, but I really do enjoy the company a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I get the DOJ the lawsuit fears, but I mean, for us investors, even if it gets broken up, right, the sum of the parts is worth more than what it's worth today. So we will gain from that. On the other side of things, I mean, you've probably seen the LinkedIn post from the CEO of Perplexity, basically backing um, Google when it comes to Chrome, right? He basically said there's no other company that should get control of Chrome because it's such a huge asset and nobody can run it in a profitable way, just like they do. Plus, Chromium is open source, and browsers like Microsoft Edge and, well, I think the upcoming Perplexity browser will be running thanks to that. So I don't know. It's such a strange thing because the biggest fears at first were that, oh, ChatGPTs, etc., are going to ruin Google search. Yet Google search came out with quite good results, grew 10% year over year. YouTube grew 10%. And so, yeah, I'm like scratching my head here and like, okay, is this the next Alibaba? It's just a great company that grows, and the market just doesn't care anymore.
No, I think for this one, I think the market is gonna wake up eventually, especially when they start to see kind of even more of that. What I think is going to be a strong Google Cloud growth. I mean, their advertisement money is that free cash flow is insane, and now it seems like Google CEO Neil was pretty excited to talk about Waymo. And they're starting to now get questions. I think they even mentioned, "Hey, this is the first time we've actually gotten an individual Waymo question for the company," and it kind of just showcases how things are improving there. So it just shows that this is a company that has a lot of opportunity. Opportunities is not going to be. It doesn't mean guarantee, but it's just at least the opportunity to even grow at other avenues in faster rates than most of the market. So I'm hoping the market wakes up. And yeah, I mean, I, even though I still use all other AI tools, Google is still my home browser. Is the first thing I want to make sure I install in all my laptops or whatever I get first. So it's very, very crucial to my everyday life, and I can see it being the same for anybody else.
Yeah, I saw an interesting, interesting, not so interesting post, but a funny one where they basically showed the Google trends or searches, right? So you see google.com. First of all, I don't know who still writes google.com in a browser, but okay, that's besides the point. And then you see a ChatGPT, and it's to basically to say, oh, look at how many people actually look for ChatGPT, and look at how many people actually look at a search for Google. But then I'm like, okay, cool, but you're still using Chrome, and your base and your screenshot is Google Trends. So clearly, you are also using those services. So it's the echo chamber, especially on X, I'd say when it comes to even Waymo or search is quite something.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I I really do like the Max Sevens right now. We do have a few questions. I didn't join on the main thingy, so I can't pull up the questions. If you want to just grab any, and we can just rapid fire or share our thoughts.
Yeah, it's been a while, so you have to get used to the live streams again. I guess how these things work. um, First of all, Dave, thank you for a super chat. Have you guys seen a company called ACM Research? Have you heard about a company called ACM Research?
I've heard about it a bit. It's a company that focuses on a process in the semiconductor equipment manufacturing. I think mainly in kind of like the wafer manufacturing itself. David, to outside of that, it's not a company I've done any research on. That's the only thing I know about it. And I think are they reporting earnings today, or have they reported earnings? Um, so yeah, I outside of what they do, I don't know anything else, Neil.
Let me pull up one thing here, and then let me even plug something for myself today. So this is ACM. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. Um, so together with its subsidiaries, develops, manufacture, and sells single wafer wet cleaning equipment for enhancing the manufacturing process and yield for integrated chips worldwide. Okay, so basically what Jose, the chip master here, told us. Market cap $1.34 billion, free cash flow margin 8.9%, forward P and trading 12 months P not that far from each other. Forward P of 9.5 and a trailing 12 month of 13.9. Revenue wise, it's expected to grow, forward revenue that is 17.7%. That's not bad, but EPS is negative. So I guess there's something to check out there. But interesting. If I look at the last 5 years, it's not like this stock has done that much.
Yeah, and this is going to be most of the chart you usually see within a lot of the equipment players. They got pretty excited during 2020, and 2021, or even early 2022, when we saw huge investments in capital expenditure for building new fabs or expanding fabs due to um, needing more chip manufacturing lines. Then it kind of quiet down for a long time. Now, kind of the long term tailwind is as you pretty much what every other semiconductor equipment play has, Neil. As you right now, you're seeing more expansion of chips all over the world, or chip fabs all over the world. A company like this one can benefit from it. So I think right now I do like the equipment space. But if there is outside of Micron, a segment outside of the memory space, a segment that's very cyclical, in my opinion, it's the research, it's the equipment players, where you definitely do have to wait for those nice tailwinds, and we are seeing that right now. So I would expect maybe these stocks and other equipment stocks to do really really well right now.
Okay, we've been talking. Oh, actually, we haven't talked since Lam Research reported, and surprise, surprise, again a pretty strong quarter by Lam Research. I'm just trying to look here at the expected. We've seen the expected, but just the year on year. So yeah, revenue wise, it's still expected to grow quite quickly in the next coming fiscal year. So I guess you get that. So that's not bad. Quick plug here. This is FinChat. There's a link in the description, probably in the pinned comment as well. You can get 25% off this week. So do check it out. Do check it out. And of course, check out Jose's newsletter, whattheship happened.com as well. It's free. So why not? Why not?
It's 100% off today and this week.
Exactly.
um, Neil, I like this question from Matthew Johnson. Just a few. I haven't watched the video, but I've actually never thought about something like this. But Matthew did mention.
This
Have
one?
you guys seen the Bloomberg videos about data centers in Virginia? Do you think cities will start passing laws to limit the amount of data centers within the city? Seems like citizens are fed up. I'm gonna have to watch the video, Neil, because I wonder what is kind of the biggest complaint from these data centers. I mean, something like this would obviously bring a lot of jobs to certain cities. So I think there's going to be plenty of places that might just say, hey, if you're not going to be, if you don't want to go to that city or that city doesn't want you, we'll gladly take you because we can definitely see kind of a growth in the city economy. So I have Matthew. I have to watch that video. But thank you for bringing it up. It's something I'm gonna do later today.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it probably has to do with energy consumption and maybe pollution as well. I would assume the energy side of things. I guess you can fix it by trying to accelerate renewable energy deployments and all of that. The pollution side of things is obviously something else that you should tackle. But yeah, on the one side, you have quite a lot of jobs if you get a huge data center that's being built near your city. On the flip side, you will need quite a lot of energy. And I think the energy part of it, I think Eric Schmidt talked about that, the ex Google CEO talked about that, that the US really needs to accelerate energy deployment if it really wants to, well, to become the huge player, the AI player, because we all know those data centers, they consume quite a lot of energy.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the biggest things that might be holding back the United States. So I wonder if that's going to change over time. We've heard about it. I pretty much mainly heard about it from semi-analysis a few months ago, but that's kind of like the biggest hurdle from what I've read through the United States and kind of this AI data center raise is pretty much power constraint. And certain other places like China might not be in that constraint space.
Agreed. Um, Quick question. Next week, we have AMD report, the Advanced Money Destroyer. Any thoughts, expectations?
Um, I mean, I hope we hear a little bit more updates on the MI350. Um, I would love to hear any more status on that. I'm pretty sure they're gonna just tease the June event, um, but I'm hoping to get at least some color on what to see there. I think everything else, Neo, maybe data center server CPUs as well would be good. I'm not expecting maybe I think right now, Neil, the consumer space is cloudy. I think even Intel mentioned it that they saw again
Mhm.
another pull ahead before the tariffs, and that might just be creating maybe false growth or false narrative. I think it's going to be similar story for AMD. So the consumer side, while it might be good, I don't know how I'm going to take it in forms of actual information or if there's just too much uncertainty behind it. I think the ones that I could take clearly are going to be the AI space and maybe the embedded market, seeing if there's been any changes there. Has kind of the weakness created even more weakness in that industry, or is it pushing some other avenues there?
Yeah, I mean, my prediction was that we will only get guidance for AI revenue in Q2, so the Q2 earnings call, so only 3 months from now. So I don't think we're going to get that much information. But like you said, I think more info on the MI350, like some orders update, maybe they've seen some increase in demand, something like that could definitely be helpful. The client side, I mean, if the client side still performs well, that means they're taking more market share and doing much better than Intel. For those watching and listening, don't forget client and gaming is going to become one segment when they report it. So the numbers might be surprising to you at first. Embedded, I mean, they said they had what over $14 billion in design wins in 2024. Eventually, eventually that will have to be visible in the reports, right? So maybe now is too soon, but if they keep saying that those things will turn the gaming side and embedded will turn into a tailwind, I think that should be good for AMD. But of course, the focus is definitely on the data center side of things because that's the biggest segment and that's the one actually that's growing the fastest and the most profitable one. So yeah, we'll see. Plus, ZT system acquisition is done, so that's behind us.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to give us from that. I'm curious, Neil, on the CT system, if they got any updates on that on that partnership of who they're going to sell it to. I'm curious. I don't remember, Neil. Maybe you might know. Um, do they have a timeline of when they should they want to get rid of that business completely? Or is there no timeline in place?
Good question. I don't know if I read it somewhere or if they said it, but I'll try and find it. Let's see.
And
I
then
know they
Neil,
said they were in talks with some potential buyers, but I don't know if we have in the meantime, you can read this and you can go buy a share of.
this is Neil for a share of Nvidia. I think you should buy a couple of shares. And then you can talk. I'll think about it.
It's much cheaper than a share of Nvidia. It's about $12 or something like that right now. And maybe by tomorrow it will be much more. Who knows? So
I,
get in
I, I,
early.
I like Ron's thing. Jose, if you use Neil's background, it would look like you are in the same room. I'm gonna tell Neil to just send me his background so that I can include it next time.
Yeah, I will actually do that after when we're offline. We'll just send it this background and say extend it to the right or to the left.
I think even if I use it and I just mirror it, it seems like we'll just have two desks, Neil. So I think it'll be fine.
Smart thinking.
uh, Deep Sea posted, Neil, thoughts on Huawei chips rivaling Nvidia. So Neil, I mean, I don't know if we talked about this as a rivaling Nvidia. I don't think that's much of a concern to me. I think the biggest concern is the void that needs to be filled. And it's not a worry that I think is going to be impactful today, next year, or 2 years from now. But it's something that if the void stays, and by what I mean void is Nvidia no longer selling chips in China or AI accelerators, it creates a void that it doesn't matter if your chips can't compete to Nvidia. If Nvidia can't sell there, any chip in theory can compete in there because there's nobody else to play. So even if you provide a cheaper, a weaker down chip, you're still kind of the only market option. Now, in the long term of things, I'm talking maybe 4+ years. What I think, if that void continues, is now you're sending all this money to one company, Huawei, from China. And now that allows them to accelerate their research and development and accelerate other things. It also helps kind of the reason I hate to get one of the reasons we pulled out of Nvidia chips is for national security risk, right? That's the concern, Neil. But in my opinion, and maybe you guys can see if I'm overthinking it or if I'm just playing dumb. Is by pulling out in Nvidia there used to kind of force spenders to split their wallets, some into Huawei, some into Nvidia, probably mainly into Nvidia. So now Chinese players were giving most of their money to a US based company. Now, and that US based company was using TSMC to manufacture a lot of the things. Now, what you end up doing is by pulling Nvidia out, you're going to give all that money that you were giving to Nvidia to Huawei. Now, Huawei is going to give all that money to SMCI, or Semiconductor Manufacturing in China, SMIC. And now you're going to help them also improve their manufacturing process as well. So not only are you now accelerating and giving more money to research and development in Huawei, you're also giving more money and research and development to a Chinese semiconductor manufacturing. So now I think you've created kind of exactly the opposite of what you were trying to do, which was kind of do maybe some form of national security. So first, that point to me is kind of dumb with this. The second thing is now 4 or 5 years from now, what you're also doing is one of the great things about Nvidia is it has a massive ecosystem of developers. Now you're forcing the Chinese market, which is a huge market, that the developers now instead of using Nvidia's software ecosystem, you start to create an ecosystem in Huawei by force. So 5, 7 years from now, well, again, maybe that might still be too short, but in the future, that's all that matters. In the future, now you even have another developer ecosystem that is able to maybe not compete, but at least have some form of strength in the developer ecosystem, because now you forced a lot of developers to use that solution as well. So even if you have a weaker developer system, even if you have a weaker chip, it becomes an alternative in the long term of things. So right now, not necessarily too scared of it. I think we're going to get some changes about it. But in the long term of things, I think it's something that maybe could be, if it stays intact, should be considered.
So basically, what you're saying is short Nvidia, go long Huawei. I got the
Exactly,
message.
exactly what I meant, Neil.
No, but I mean, it makes sense that there's another podcast that I think is more interesting when it comes to Nvidia, and which the Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley one. I think they talk about Nvidia and AI more in depth, and with more valuable information. And I think last week they talked exactly about that, about these stupid rules that are in place right now. And I mean, look at
Is
Huawei
this the
and
big podcast?
the B2G.
Oh,
Yeah,
B2, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
I mean, look at the example Huawei and iPhone, for example, Apple iPhone, right? Apple had the lead, had the most market share in China, and yeah, and then Huawei came out. Okay, started very small. Nobody really took them too serious, but now I believe it's the most popular player in China. Same thing could happen with Nvidia. Could happen. Of course, there's a big difference between the phone and the Nvidia ecosystem, CUDA and GPUs. But why even go this way, right? Why push people away from an amazing American made product and ecosystem towards a Chinese one? To me, that doesn't make much sense. I mean, even the exports control. Do we really think that these things have helped that much? Probably not, right? Probably not. Plus, at the end of the day, if they still have access to the software side of things, then what's the point? If they had no access to the software, then okay, then they have some big issues. But yeah, I just it's you're not playing 4D chess here. You're probably playing 1D, and the Chinese are playing 3D, and Jensen is playing 5D. So we'll see. We'll see how that evolves. But so far, it's not going to be a threat. But if these things continue, then I could say with not absolute certainty, but I will be quite confident in saying that Huawei comes out with a very strong product towards the end of this decade.
Yeah, and again, it might just start off as a sub. I don't know. This political downhole can go a long way. I want to see where this evolves first. I do think it's probably to the best interest of Nvidia, even though maybe not to Nvidia investors in the short term, that they even develop a cheaper chip than the H20 or whatever, just so they can again continue to pull force away from that ecosystem and pushing it all to one player. So even if it might seem like a dumb move in the short term of things, I think keeping the developer ecosystem, even if it means losing a bit of money or margins, I think as a long-term player, I think that's the best option. But I guess that's something we're gonna have to wait and see if they do develop something weaker than the, maybe not for the Hopper. I know they were kind of expecting to build something for like the B20 for the Blackwell platform, to see if they build eventually. And also, Neo, I am gonna be curious if eventually, if these kind of regulations, AI regulations, especially for chip hardwares, are they movable? Like let's think about it as in simple terms of the PlayStation as a gaming console, right? Let's say 10 years ago you kind of banned the PlayStation 1, but then if competitors all started to build the next generation of PlayStation, the PlayStation 1 no longer is any good. So why would that still be banned? Can you kind of move that off the ban list and kind of be able to move it back into the market? Maybe that was a bad explanation actually, but regardless, is it, I'm hoping that these AI chip rules become, are not fully definite, where if a better chip is built, can the other one be kind of pushed away because it just doesn't make sense to have it, especially if there is a competitor already in that ecosystem building.
Yeah, and I mean, it's it's not even a thing that technically you can control. Let's be honest, right? If they really want to have access to that GPU, they'll find a way, and I'm pretty sure that they already found a way right now. The DeepSeek didn't come out of nowhere, and I mean that leads me to the next question. Jensen, after that announcement, right, went to China, right, a day or two later, went to China, met with some folks there, met with the DeepSeek folks as well. What do you think were the discussions there? Talking about
Yeah,
future potential products that they can buy.
and I think this is where I think so, Neil. I think this is where it gets to, and it's a very tricky fine line of how much Jensen can play with the Chinese market before the U.S. administration like starts putting them on the bad side of things. So I would love to hear what that conversation was about. Um, Speculations, I think it's going to be like I mentioned, a weaker down chip where it's like, hey, we still have to follow U.S. laws, obviously, which they should, but we will still serve this market. And again, I think for in theory for national security, that's probably the best bet where you're producing a chip for the United States that's multiple times better, and you're already splitting the money in that country to a U.S. based company already. So I mean, I think it's a win-win, and I'm hoping that there are some discussions or something like that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Pete here asks, what do you think about equipment, semiconductors, and tariffs after earnings of ASML and Lam Research? I didn't dive so deep into Lam Research. Maybe you did, but with ASML, I mean, just focusing on where they're generated their revenue from, quite a big change, right? Compared to a year ago. A year ago, China was 47, 49%. Now it's back in the, I believe, in the 20s, and South Korea made up the largest chunk of the revenue. Guidance wise, commentary still pretty good from ASML, so nothing much has changed there. Lam Research, did you hear about anything specific?
No, Neil, that one's one I haven't looked at just yet. So that's going to be on my list of papers to read. But a few things, Neil. I think um, in forms of tariffs, right now we do have kind of that semiconductor uh, national security research going on. And I think the main reason of that is to understand how, especially the semiconductor market works, which is pretty tricky. In my opinion, Neil, what's going to end up happening after this month or 2 month or 3 month of research is equipment players are actually going to be excluded from the tariffs here into the United States. The reason being is if your main goal is to build fabs in the United States, why would you want to make it more expensive to do that into here? So I think the smart thing to do is for semiconductor equipment for the manufacturing space to be tariff free because it's going to incentivize the bringing of equipment and build fabs here in the United States. So I'm hoping that's the case. If that's the case, there is hope for the semiconductor space this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, imagine you have a business and you're like, yeah, we want to make sure that this segment of our business becomes the strongest ever, but we're also going to make sure that this side of the business now has to pay 25% extra for equipment to make sure that we can expand. Just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and there was some article, Neil, a few weeks ago when kind of all these tariffs came out. I don't know how true it was, but I just remember the headline. It was like it would cost TSMC like an extra $5 billion on some of these fabs because of the added tariffs for the equipment space. And it's like, why would you want to do that if you want more fabs and more semiconductor manufacturing to come domestically?
Especially after they committed to invest so much money in the United States, you would think that they get some special treatments because they also create quite a lot of jobs, etc., etc.
Yep, yep. What else, Neil? So yeah, for semiconductor equipments, I think overall there's still a nice tailwind for manufacturing. I think tariffs is still very much uncertain. What I was surprised though, Neil, is a lot of these companies reaffirmed their earnings for this year. So I was expecting either some pullbacks or a lot more of the word used uncertain. And so they're not going to give us too much guidance. But a lot of the even the semiconductor players last week, and big players, did either reaffirm their guidance, or if there was a change because of tariffs, it really wasn't that much of a change on guidance, right? And that's the most important thing, right? Because we didn't care, like you mentioned, these earnings were already before tariffs. What was going to be more important was just kind of the guidance that they would give us and the picture they were trying to paint. And I think they painted us that it's still in the same direction that they were going. Maybe a bit of a hurdle, but not as big as maybe some of the market initially expected.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, right now, Nvidia is down 2.3%, back under $110. I mean, if by the time they report earnings, which will be end of May, maybe I can buy one extra share when we'll cover that earnings. I'll have 2 shares of Nvidia, and hopefully it won't cost me that much. Um, let's see. Arvind asks here, would love to hear your analysis on LOTB. When I read this, I was like, what is it? Lord of the Biscuits?
That's what I was just thinking too.
And it actually is Lord of the Biscuits. It's Lotus Bakeries. It's a Belgian company, actually, snack and food company. Speculoos, you probably Lotus Speculoos, the little cookies that you probably know what that is. The performance of that stock is also quite something. I mean, now there has been a pullback since the highs last year, but if I go to, let's say, the 10-year chart, this thing is up over 700%. So I did not look. I mean, I know of the company. I probably contributed to a lot of their profits and revenue over the years. But I will have to study the financials because it is quite interesting. SoFi, pump or dump based off earnings? I'd say pump. I think we're going to see an easy double beat tomorrow. I mean, right now it's quite strong. It's up 2% when a lot of companies and stocks are in the red. I do fully expect to see a very, very strong quarter by SoFi. So yeah, I'd say pump. But I said that in the past, and we have seen a pump when they report earnings, and then a day later it dumped. So we'll see. I'm more worried about PayPal's stock reaction. This is usually one that reports on the worst day, the worst week ever. Tesla, for example, last week, I mean, the worst quarter I've seen in a long, long time, and this thing was up 17% a couple of days later. If PayPal did that, it would be down 50%. I can assure you that that would be a certainty. So we'll see. But I do expect SoFi to be up tomorrow.
Yeah. Neil, I don't know if the real missing link is still here. He had a question, or the link had a question about Qualcomm. I don't know if we want to tackle a real missing link. If you're here, maybe I can tackle that if you are. But with Tesla, Neil, one thing that I was pretty interested to hear about was kind of the robotics market. All right, real missing. I see you're still here. I'll talk about Qualcomm in a few seconds. Let me just finish this point. With Tesla, is they talked about the robotic space, and one of the biggest hurdles there was the supply chain. And it just kind of shows that this robotics market is definitely going to have, in my opinion, like some dustings of how it's going to grow over time, because you don't just build a supply chain like this out of in a few days or a few weeks. You have to kind of do a lot of thinking and assessment of it. So it tells me maybe the robotic space might not be, in my opinion, something that we'll see in the next year or two, but it could definitely be something that we're going to see maybe in 5 years from now, as we start to kind of build this infrastructure of supply chain for it. So I think by hearing that, it gives me at least a breather room if I want to find some form of AI robotics companies, or just robotics companies in general. I think we have plenty of time to do some research on it.
Fair enough. Before you touch on Qualcomm, there is here 2 questions on Netflix. Netflix had another very good quarter. Not not surprising, to be honest. Amazing company which should have bought when Bill Ackman sold. It was just such a no-brainer, but okay, fine. Um, will it split? I don't know. Is it still above 8,000? 8,000? Yeah, it's at $1,111. Will it split? Maybe. I mean, American companies do like to split a lot. Mercado Libre sits at 2,000 and has probably no intention on splitting anytime soon. So we'll see. I would not be surprised if Netflix splits later this year, but it's not really a focus of mine or any investor. I would say the focus is definitely on the business. Tariff wise, they're of course pretty immune. The only thing that I could say is maybe if consumer sentiment comes down even more, people might cancel their Netflix subscription. But I see zero signs of that happening anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, Netflix is definitely an interesting play. I think it's starting to get to the time though, Neil, every time I start to see kind of a price increase. A few times, like when they used to do it back then, I would forget about it after a day or two. When I start to hear about it now, or any company kind of doing a price increase, it stays. I stay angry for a few weeks or so. So maybe I think it's getting tiring of seeing kind of all these price increases in a lot of these products. Hey, it's like you know what you're going to provide. Why don't you just give me the price increase? And then a few years from now, you do it again. It's not like, oh, we just found a new blah, blah, blah that we need to invest in. So that gets a little bit annoying. And I think maybe consumers are eventually going to start hating that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um,
Or they switch to the ad supported tier, which I
mhm.
think is the plan because that's when they can monetize you even better.
All right, Neil. So we got the real missing link. Great to see you guys again. Great to see you again, real missing link. What are your assessments on Qualcomm in the next 1 to 3 years? If you look at price levels to get in, or do you shoot from the hip with that? Thanks as always. So missing link. I don't own Qualcomm. I don't want to say for any bearish reasons. I think the stock is definitely one that can benefit in the next 3 years. This is a company that, Neil, I think is really good position for things like augmented reality, for virtual reality. Um, and those are two things that we're seeing some traction, especially in the augmented reality side. I mean, we see even Meta platforms even release newer versions, or not new variants. Variances might be the best word. New variants of their Meta Ray Bans, and I think the only reason they would be doing something like that is they're seeing traction in that space. And even I think you have them, right, Neil? You have them, and my wife's been talking about them. I've been thinking about looking into them as well. So I think this is an opportunity for them because they do provide a lot of the processing chip that happens into the augmented reality glasses. And Google has even announced something similar. Also, very similar, the virtual reality market, while it might not be as exciting as the augmented reality market right now, I think eventually it has some, maybe might not look how it looks like today, Neil, but I think over time, it's going to be a market that's going to evolve and become very popular. Maybe might not look like I mentioned how it is now. Outside of that, Neil, I think Internet of Things is going to be a strong market thanks to artificial intelligence, and you're going to need a little bit more processing power behind it. Qualcomm has a lot of chips that go into a lot of Internet of Things, either being for the consumer market or even for the industrial space. So I can see Missing Link a growth opportunity for Qualcomm. Now, why haven't I invested? Is sometimes I just get a little bit more excited in some other markets. I do know that Qualcomm is still very dependent in the mobile space. And maybe for now, it's still a little too boring for me in that segment to even look at it. But it's a company that pays dividend, so it's what I would consider maybe a growth dividend, where it's like it's not a full growth play, but it's a dividend play, and it's also has that growth opportunity. So I see the bullish case behind the real missing link, just not one that I would add to my portfolio just yet, but not for any reason. I just like other stocks that are a little bit crazier instead.
Yeah, I mean it's one that has always is always looking very cheap, right? I think it's a PE of 15, 16 right now. It's cheap, but it has always been around that on average over the last couple of years. It pays a small dividend, I think above 2% or so. So that's good. It has its hands in plenty of growing sectors like you've talked about. I think even industrial AI is one of the newer slides that we've got 3 months or so ago. It's one of those companies where I would love to own, but then again, what do I need to own it since I already have now enough exposure in my eyes when it comes to the semiconductor industry, and I believe you have exposure to Qualcomm through the semiconductor ETF, if I'm not mistaken. So that's I guess another way to get exposed to Qualcomm. It's definitely a very well-run company, very profitable, growing. But yeah, I guess the market here as well is probably on the sidelines because I do think that next year Apple will come out with their own modem for the phones, and that's something that Qualcomm used to do. So we'll see, but definitely a very good company.
Yeah, I agree, Neo. Um, oh, Neo, I got on YouTube really quick. I saw Tesla did an update to about an hour or two ago. Did you watch that video?
What did they update us this time?
On the I think it's the factory of the semi factory. Um, so for the semi truck, the semi truck.
Yeah,
So there's a quick video. I haven't watched it, so I didn't know if you saw it. I want to see if
but
I should watch it or not.
yeah, I know I did not watch it, but yeah, it's also I think it's a no, it's not a new account on X, but it only has two posts. One post on April 25th, just a picture of three semi trucks driving inside the factory, and one from 2 hours ago. So I guess things are getting a bit more interesting when it comes to the semi truck, which is my favorite product, which funny enough, because everybody's talking about all the rest, but I think this semi truck can be something very interesting. Um, let's see. Ah, more Tesla talk here. So Matthew Johnson says thoughts on Tesla Robo-taxi versus Waymo. Seems like the Tesla call all they said it would be cheaper to produce. However, during the Google call, Waymo potentially can lease it to other cars. Now, you've probably already seen a couple of posts on X of people comparing a Waymo and then the Cybercab and then putting a price on that picture. First of all, the price that you're probably seeing for Waymo is very, very outdated, whether it's 200,000 or 170,000. Those were prices that I've seen on forums in 2020, in 2021. Now we're in 2025, and I can assure you that the prices of LiDAR and all of that has come down quite drastically. And Google themselves has said that the next gen vehicles are, well, the cost, it costs them way less. So it's true, it will be more expensive than Teslas right now, but as they scale, I would assume the cost will come down as well. um, Now, one extra thing, as a Tesla shareholder and a Google one, Waymos are driving in various cities currently with nobody in the driving seat. Now, it's true that those things are geofenced, but then again, me as a consumer, why should I care, right? If I need a Waymo in a city and it can bring me from point A to point B, I'm fine with that. Um, but yeah, we'll see. The Robotaxi launch will happen in Austin in June, 10 to 20 vehicles at first. Hopefully, it goes well so they can scale up and move into other cities. But right now, there is quite a lot of hate from the Tesla base on Waymo, which is exactly what we've seen from Tesla haters on Tesla. So it's interesting to see how that circles back. But yeah, I'm bullish on both. I think as consumers, I think we are the winners here because we will just get more options. Plus, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and with Matthew, however, during the Google call, Waymo potentially can lease it to other cars. I mean, Tesla has also talked about that, of also kind of leasing or kind of giving their technology to other vehicles. I think at the end of the day, Neo, Elon has actually, Elon has explained this pretty good, in my opinion, is something like this, every vehicle is different. So it's like if you want to build something, you have to recreate your new vehicle or make sure that your next few vehicles for the next few generations don't change too much where you can continue to use that same technology. Because I mean, there's so many vehicles, so you have to make sure all the sensors are in the right place, understanding everything from the vehicle, from its aerodynamics, the speeds, the wheel size, and for every vehicle is different. I think that's it's not as easy as just like, hey, look, yeah, you can take it and now you can build something out of it. If they do take it, it's something that will take a few years before we even see it into maybe a new vehicle. Maybe with Google, because I think they, who do they use, Neil? Jaguar right now, or no?
They used to use Jaguar. They're moving to Hyundai, and They had a deal with Zeekr, the Chinese company, but
Mhm.
I don't know how that's going to work out now.
Yeah, so I think those that they maybe already had partnerships with maybe have a little of advantage over some of the other players, but I still think it's kind of like a few year thing even after the license begins for us to really see some outside of like the Google ecosystem come out.
But I would say that the big difference here is of course in Tesla's advantage is that, well, it's the Tesla car. So if you or me have a Tesla vehicle, flip of the switch, and our car is now a full self-driving enabled car. Now, to license the software, that's something else. But I do think that during the earnings call, they talked about not licensing the software for Google Waymo. It was purely about the car, and that
Oh, okay.
yeah, that a
Oh,
Waymo car can
mhm.
be owned by a specific person. Um, Now, I think we talked about that in a full show, maybe a bold prediction one or something, where I said that maybe in the future, Google, or maybe with someone else, Google will have just enough data, and then they'll just trade on synthetic data, and maybe they might be switching to vision after all, once they feel more comfortable. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sounds good, Neil. Any other questions?
Anduril going public, I don't know. Hopefully very soon, but I mean they are raising money like there is no tomorrow at very high valuations because they are growing like crazy. So I don't know. I thought I would have the opportunity to buy it at $20 billion, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. I mean, I think they'll go public and it's going to be worth around probably 100 billion or close to that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Think when the robotaxi launches, do you think there will be a steering wheel? I mean, the robotaxi now in June is the Model Y. The Cybercab will have no robotaxi, will have no steering wheel. So that's in 2026 if everything goes according to plan, of course. Um, we have actually a question for you here. Nvidia is
s-
likely building a CPU for Windows on ARM. It might be a big player, but its Nintendo Switch chip is kind of weak. What do you think?
I think for the Nvidia chip, Neo, I think Nintendo gives it the specs of, hey, look, we actually want just something more power efficient than actual performance. Obviously, things are changing up, and now with people hate it, but with Nvidia kind of including some of these AI solutions like multiple frame generations, you can now have a little bit of mixture of both, where you don't need to have the most powerful chips to have great frame rates, and you can also be power efficient. I think that's what Nintendo cares more about. It's like, hey, are my consumers happy? Are they going to be able to run some of these games for multiple hours instead of like maybe a traditional laptop or some of these other? Like I have one of the Aces handheld, Neil, and the battery power is like 2 to 3 hours if I'm running like some intense games, maybe even shorter than that. I don't get that problem with the Nintendo Switch when I used to play it. So Nintendo, they give the specs for Nvidia to build, and that partnership is going. I don't think that Nintendo chips should be seen as anything for the CPU market, but it does seem like there are more reports that Nvidia is going to announce more of a CPU for the consumer space. I think we only have like 1 month or two to listen to find out, because if they do have something for the consumer, not just for your engineers like we saw with the digits or whatever they're calling it, I forget the actual names, but for the consumer space, we will hear about it during Computex Taiwan, which I believe either takes place in June or July. Ron, hopefully we get in a month or two, we get and we finally see if these rumors are true or not.
Actually, Computex will happen. I mean, I got here AMD announces press conference at Computex 2025, May 21st. So even
Oh wow,
sooner,
so even sooner.
even
Nice.
sooner, even sooner. And the Nintendo Switch isn't pre-orders starting today or something like that, or orders starting today. I don't know. A very expensive console and very expensive games, I have to say. So the performance better be very good.
How much is it coming out for, Neil? I didn't.
I think it's now above $400 or so, and the games are $80 per game, which is crazy.
Digo has this question here. I'm not too. Will search conflict of interest poster child Google out of monetize?
I mean, if we're talking purely about Gemini, I don't know, but if we're talking about AI search, for example, AI overview, they told us that search monetization is the same rate, is at the same rate as the standard search. So that was pretty good news to hear. Now, for Gemini, remains to be seen. Of course, we know that every time you ask a question, every time you say thank you, it costs them money. So we'll see. But it's running on their own cloud, so I guess they'll figure it out. I mean, they do have probably the best cost structure, I would say, out there, out of the big players.
Yeah, Neil. I mean, with the Gemini, I think that's they have the ability. I think they have to continue to push with this Gemini, even if there is a conflict of interest with the ad version or the ad side of it. Because if they don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So they need to be right in front of that. And they are investing a lot in TPUs and NVIDIA GPUs. Obviously, the Gemini more mainly runs on internal solutions. But overall, I mean, I think I'm not too. That's not a worry for me for Nvidia for Google at the moment. I don't. I think they're a top AI player and they will know how to do this. Neil, I don't know if you have one more question or not. It's coming into the end. Oh,
Yeah, no, we're at the end. The market is closed, and this is what we're looking at right now. So I would say balanced finish right now. Pretty big earnings week coming up. I'm sure we'll have plenty of videos covering everything in the next coming days. So Thursday, I will be in Miami, so no stream on Thursday.
oh, I thought you were there this week, Neil. All
No,
right,
no,
so yeah.
no. Thursday, I will be in Miami. I'm coming back already on Monday or Tuesday morning, so quick trip.
Hmm.
But starting next week, we should be back. We should be
Normal
back.
time, not normal time.
Not normal time,
Normally.
because we might switch the lunchtime series to maybe dinner time or happy hour time. But
Happy hour. I like the ring of that.
Yeah, okay, happy hour time is probably going to be better. So thank you all for joining. If you're interested in Tempus AI, the video is now live because apparently some of the viewers already knew that I was going to talk about that. I don't know how, but okay. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see each other probably next week.